We are live. Yes.
It's amazing how this technology works.
Technology is always working. And we have our first comment already. Thank you, Booba.
Yep.
Hi to
See
you.
you again.
Welcome. So most of our colleagues are actually on an on or off site. It's an on site, right, Bryan?
On-site. Yeah, technically on-site.
So they're just in the office. Let's call it.
Half the
That's
demo
what we call that.
is over in Berlin. Tim and I weren't able to travel for it, and we're here with you instead, and happy to be. I love streaming, so I'm excited
to go. So let's see, because I did like a scheduled post to Twitter, which went wrong. Now I'm gonna check our Slack to see if my scheduled post actually worked.
It went in the community. The Slack community is good to go with knowing that we're here.
Then I'm assuming my LinkedIn post worked also.
I'm just putting the call to action.
Oh, look
here.
at the CTAs.
Yep.
We have CTAs. Nice.
That's if you're curious about knowing when these are happening, we post about it in the community, in the Slack community regularly as well.
Exactly.
So you don't have to follow us on Twitter, don't have to hit Tim's LinkedIn, just join the community.
Yeah, the community Slack should be enough. And so Booba, generally it's going to be on Wednesdays. And so Uwe is actually saying he'd love to join. So I think that's going to be a good one.
Yeah, probably not next time because you're out next, and I think it's just going to be me and Lo working on some stuff.
Exactly.
But we can plan for it. I like to
figure that out, Booba. We'll reach out with our official people who help us with this stuff, which we have now, which is cool.
It's amazing.
Anyway, so now that some of the viewers are pouring in, let's talk about what we'll do today. Because as we're saying, our colleagues are off. Well, they're not off. They're working hard, but just not here with us.
Yep.
And so we felt like Tim doesn't know React very well. And why not take something in Hygraph, something with GraphQL that's not like the easiest, like off the bat thing that just works, but something that requires just a little bit more, and just have him struggle. I talked about myself in the third person, and it's weird.
Just have Tim struggle. Yeah, I'll say it. We'll have Tim struggle.
I'm down for it, though. So what we came up with is like last week, we actually built like load more functionality or pagination with Astro using a bit of React and Hygraph and GraphQL. So all those things together are not super easy, but as you look at our stream, actually worked pretty well.
Yeah.
But now, why not try that in Next and React? Because there's different flavors of how you could build something, but essentially it's probably the same thing. Right, Bryan? What do you think?
Yeah, exactly. And the fun thing is we're actually, so that demo that we gave last week, it's going to be an official Hygraph starter. And it will actually also be in these multiple flavors, right?
Yep.
I've polished up the Astro one. Tim has been working on the next one. We'll be doing Next today, and we'll polish that up as well, so that anyone who wants to kind of try this idea out can see the differences in the frameworks, the differences in the ideologies even. Because in just those three, and we might do more, right? But in just those three, there are distinct ways of handling these things, and they're all similar, but they come with their own strengths and weaknesses. And honestly, we were talking about before the stream, a little behind the scenes, right? Tim actually has already built this, but there's actually some things that I want to change from his code and the way he's doing it, and we're gonna work through that as well. But in looking at it,
whoa, we have people from Berlin in the office.
Yep.
Nice.
But in looking at it, I actually, as much as I know Next pretty well and know React pretty well, we were talking about it, and I actually wish it were more like the Astro version, and we could code it to be more like the Astro version that we did. But that's not really the Next way, at least as far as I know it. So we're going to do it in a more Next-y way, and we might talk about it when we get there. Like, here's the difference between the Astro thing, and here's the drawback, but the benefit that we get from it as well.
Yeah, and because I just wanted to practice at least a little before this stream. Like, I just wanted to have something on the screen, and you could see my brain is Vue.js. And the way in Vue.js you would like to like rehydrate or re-render reactive props and stuff, and the wording is relatively similar. We have use something as well. There's a use state in Next, but it just works differently, slightly differently. And we have Jonas as well from the home office. Yep. Welcome. And the thing is, my brain just works a certain way. And when I did the next one, I just did it because I knew how we'll probably do it.
Yep.
And I had a very small amount of lines, and I felt like, yes, this is the thing. Then again, it's super black boxy. If something goes wrong, you don't really know why, but it was very convenient. But then when you do it in Next and React, obviously it's there's going to be a whole bunch of helper features as well that are also a bit black boxy, but at least it's really open and you know every detail. It's just JavaScript and TypeScript, where of course Vue is the same, but under the hood there's all this magic.
And magic is great in so many levels until you have to debug it. And that's, I mean, there's all sorts of drawbacks in React and in Next. But one of the things that has long been a React staple is trying to make it where you end up writing your code and you write
Yeah,
everything with just some help, which is a good
exactly.
thing. But it's also, there's a lot more that you have to write. There's a lot more that you have to think about in the front to get to
Yeah.
the point that Vue and Nuxt give you without thinking about, which is just, again, it's benefits and drawbacks and trade-offs, and they're all good in their own way.
I cannot wait to do a Svelte kit one and then have a look how different that is. And then we go to remix. And then there's so many. We
So
have
many.
Solid we can try. What else do we have? Something with fancy pointers and stuff. Angular. I have not done Angular since they first came out. When I looked at it, I was like, nope.
I did Angular when Angular was a like the first of the good ideas. But then then other things came out, and then now there's a whole bunch of, they got signals and all sorts of stuff now. So there's a lot of good stuff. I don't know any of it, so we'll have to find
Same.
somebody.
But you know what? What I'd love to try also is just do this with vanilla JavaScript and jQuery 4 that just came out,
Sure.
and render a template in the client. Oh, there's so much we can do. But
Just do vanilla web components.
there's something.
Talk about writing all your code from scratch, like all the boilerplate there.
Look, apparently Angular is cool now.
I've seen some cool kids talking about it. I just haven't done the exploration needed to actually know anything about it yet.
Same. I used it when it first came out, and it kind of looked like Vue 1. And Vue 1 came out after Angular because you just looked at it. It's like, hey, that's handy. Let's do this. And it was all dumb, and we had to put ng app on the HTML tag. All that stuff was fun. But let's not go down memory lane too much and show the folks a bit of code, perhaps. Or at least, oh, wait, maybe, Brian, do you have a URL that you could share with the finalized product? I realized I didn't actually come up with that yet.
That's a great question, Tim. Do I have that?
I will have it probably. Let me just go to my for sale and find. Oh, yeah, I have it.
Yeah. To at least see the Astro version of it all.
All right. Let's see. Now I can share my screen. And you know what? This is actually not the Astro version. This is my Nuxt version.
Nice. But again, all the same. It looks exactly the same. And it's actually using the same data set in Hygraph, the same studio in Hygraph. So
yeah. And so we have Enrique. Welcome.
What's up?
Oh, and so Barry says here, the new version of Angular is Vue-like. All right.
These frameworks learn from each other so much. I actually love to see that sort of thing. Like it's amazing to see that happen.
Yeah. Anyway, so this is the Nuxt version. And they all look the same, and they all come from Hygraph. And so we have a microblog project in Hygraph. And so when we look at the content, there's a few posts. And each post has a few fields. So we have a slug and some content. It's that simple. And so we're just literally just querying all the posts. So we can.
One of the things I'm going to do real fast is I'm going to go grab this. This is actually a clonable project.
Anyone
this is a tiny project in Hygraph. But you know what? Like, if you want to actually have the data set that we're working off of, I will provide that. I got to go grab it though.
Yeah. So this is basically what we're querying, and this is the query. It's very simple, obviously. Oh, it says assets here, but it's going to be posts.
Yeah.
But because this is posts with a load more, we're actually doing it through here. So post connection. And we talked about this last week. So maybe Bryan, do you want to go over why we do it this way?
Yeah, I'll give the TLDR for this, right? The TLDR is that when you're doing pagination involves a lot of things that you want helper functions around. You want little pieces of help to get information. So you could do all this via the post query, right? We have like first and last and skips and all the things that you would need to do some sort of pagination.
Yeah.
But the post connection query uses the relay connection spec in GraphQL. We've built it into every model that you make in Hygraph gets all 4 of these queries that you can kind of see here a little bit. But the connections query gives you a few things. It gives you a cursor per page. It gives you page information. You can see down on the left there. End cursor is the last ID of the post on this page, which you would then pass to the next query that you make. Has next page will let you know that, do I need to show a load more button or not? And then we also have this idea that if you show the aggregate real fast, we won't use aggregate today, but somebody asked in the community, you can also get the total count for all the pages together, right? All the posts together are aggregated in that. So if you needed to give kind of a status idea in there, you would get it. So this is good.
Here, let's go for the first 3 with aggregate and all the edges and all the things.
Yep.
So what you would get is 3 items. And then the cursor here, the end cursor is the ID of the final one here. And then, oh, that just moved.
Yep.
And then, well, there is a next page because we only got 3 and the count is 7. And so when we now query with a cursor of the last one and we query 3 again, we get the 3 next ones.
Yep, we would use the after argument in that, and it would say, give me the next 3 after the end cursor, which is, again, that's what we're going to be doing, right? When you click the load more button, we update the cursor.
Yep. So we get 3 posts after this last post, which let's see, what is the here can be short.
Yep.
So now also rich text. So this is like the next one.
The next 3 that we get.
In the next 3. And we still have 1 left now.
Yep.
And so that's exactly what you're seeing here, right? So we have the first 3, and then we have 3 more, and then the last one.
Yep.
So that's what we're dealing with here today. And so this is what I just did before the stream. That's all we have, folks. But now we kind of know how this works. And we went over this super fast. But of course, we can go to... Where do we have that? Here in our documentation, where Romina, who's actually in the chat here from our Berlin office, she works on that stuff. And so you can actually follow all this here and find out how this works. So should we do some code?
Yeah, let's code some. And the other thing to mention is that we did go over in more detail the relay connection spec in last week's stream, available on our YouTube channel, all that good stuff.
And we'll make some shorter form content also, so you don't have to watch an hour stream to learn.
Fun,
but for now, when there's some time. Anyways.
All right, so let's talk Next real fast, because I know that you know a little bit about this, but if you're not a Next person, there is this idea of the new app directory, the app router, as opposed to the old pages router that existed. This came about in Next 13. And is now the default way of doing things in Next compared to how
we're in Next 14 now.
We're Next 14 now.
What's the difference? Do you know?
I wish you wouldn't ask that, because I don't.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was literally about to say I don't know what the big changes were between 13 and 14, but they exist, and I'm sure.
Obviously, there's a lot of optimizations and things like that. Maybe it's all in Rust now, or anyways, doesn't matter.
Anyway, so in the app router, we have this app directory, and the app directory is where all of our pages end up being. So you can see we have page.tsx, which has that main that is generating the index page, right? That is in the app directory. This is our / route, our index route. And then we also have a layout.tsx. And that is where the layout that everything's going to fall within goes. So all the purple that you saw in Tim's original one, the H1 that says my microblog, all that is there. And then you'll see that little children item there underneath the H1. That's where the content of the page.tsx, all the components, all the HTML flows up into that children area. And you can chain these. These can kind of go down. You can have layouts within layouts.
There we go.
Hey, look, my name's on the microblog.
The thing is, though, this is me as a Vue.js. Oh, wait, we have a comment. Let's have a look. Oh, here, Booba is saying, oh, it's speed and stabilization as it is generally. Yeah, thanks, Booba. So, to me, as a Vue dev, like I'm looking at these names, like home and that root layout.
Yep.
Do those need to be that name? Is it naming specific, or like where is layout.tsx even called? Like, how does this work?
A lot of this is file based. So you call your file layout.tsx in a directory, and all of the pages in the directory and in any subdirectory that don't have their own layouts will import that and use it. And it's all in that stack. So there is again some kind of magic happening here. The name on the home function absolutely has no meaning. Like, make it whatever you need it to make it, except for don't put semicolons in there.
Not that.
So
this doesn't matter at all.
Okay. Exactly. So it's all kind of, there's a whole bunch of file names that work in Next.js right now. There's an error page. There's like 500 404s. There's all sorts of different pages you can get based on the naming convention. You can also do them in configuration, but they did a lot of work to make these file name conventions work.
So there is some black magic.
Yes.
But as long as you know it, we're good. And we do. And it makes sense, to be honest.
And we're not going to do it today because it's kind of against the pagination piece, but when this is finalized, right, one of the things we'll actually have in this directory will be a subdirectory that will be called post. And the post subdirectory is how we'll render the individual posts, because you want to be able to click on those.
Yeah, post pages, right? So then you would make something like this. Right, so it's variable
with a slug.tsx inside, and then it can also have its own page.tsx, and that page, if we wanted to change the layout, we could change the layout there, or it will inherit from the level above it. So a lot of good things in there, especially for somebody like me that is much more of a static person, and like that's actually in some ways how like an 11D would work. Not the dynamic routing, but like the directory-based structure makes me happy.
That makes sense, because we all came from that, at least people our age, let's say.
The olds.
Yeah, and so I don't see any components in here yet. I'm sure we're going to make those. And so this is all server rendered, right? There's no JavaScript here involved.
Correct. This will all come down at response time, but also like caching and all that. Like Next has all that built in. It's basically static coming from the cache. And there's a lot of things that Next optimizes around for that.
I like that. I do have like a little button here that turns off my JavaScript, because I'm an old school nerd who tries that on websites.
Oh yeah.
And if I do, it's still the same. That makes sense.
Yeah, that's HTML being shipped to the browser. All the stuff on the index page. We will get into client side components as well.
But we have to, I guess.
Yeah, let's go ahead and maybe get some.
We probably need to do a query first. To get data from Hygraph.
Exactly.
I
would recommend on this that maybe we copy and paste it and walk through it, because it's a lot of typing.
So I have a function here on my screen. I'm just going to copy paste it for you guys, so you can have a look at what I made. And then we can maybe just optimize it a bit. So if we are talking Next, can I just paste this and this works?
Yep. The only thing, like, you would put it in your component function if you need items from the component. Like, honestly, all this stuff should be eventually optimized out, right? Like it should be refactored and brought into its own files and all that, and then imported in.
What we've done now, and for the folks watching that know everything about like code gen with GraphQL and like the React query stuff that cleans things up a lot, we're not doing that today, to just keep it open, and also for me to understand the basics. And that's what this is. We're literally posting a fetch to the endpoint, which is Hygraph, and we're just gonna say this is the query, and this is what we were looking at before, but we did some extra fanciness.
Yep. A few things to note in there: that we are passing in 2 variables into our query. And this is GraphQL like basics, but it's something that's important to talk about, because I know not everyone is a GraphQL person. So the inside of our post query, the $sign indicates we're receiving a new variable from our post object. So cursor is going to be a string, which is that ID that we got or that we will get. And the amount is like how many we want per page. And so from there, we pass those in to the post connection query. So we're saying after cursor. So if there is a cursor, we want the post to come after it. Get the first sum number. So in this case, it'll probably be 3. And then order by is, we don't need to change that. It'll be order by the created at descending. So like the time that it was made in descending order to get that kind of timeline feel. And then all the rest of that is what we basically did inside the API playground, which is get the page info, get the posts array, and get the individual post data off of each of those nodes.
The one lovely thing I learned last week about GraphQL is when you just do posts, means that you're naming this thing posts rather than edges, and here posts. So we're now talking in pages with posts and a post. It's a lot easier than
edges and nodes and all that.
They work, but they feel so graphy, you know?
Yeah, in our regular API, right, in the regular like post or posts query, you don't have to worry about edges and nodes. You just get the data. But when you do the connection spec, it follows the actual relay connection spec on that.
Yeah, so Hygraph has simplified this thing. Like when we don't have this connection one, we actually don't have those nodes and edges.
It just makes it a little bit easier for a beginner to understand, I think.
Exactly. All right, so we have a query now, and I just put it in a little function called getData, and the amount I just set to 3 by default, and the cursor is going to be a string. But sometimes it's not going to be there. So because the first call, you don't have a cursor yet. And so here I just set it to null if it's not there. And the important bit is when we actually have a look here for the cursor. Oh, wait, I can see that here. There's no hashbang here. So if this is here, we have to have a cursor, and without, we don't. And so
I like the coder in you, Tim. That's an exclamation mark. Like it's not a bang, it's an exclamation mark. Anyway.
You're right. Of course you're right. Oh, we have here.
Yeah, and again, this is the power of GraphQL, right? Is that we could be doing code gen to get all the types and all that. We will do that in setting it up for actually being a starter, but in terms of getting this ready for today. Yeah.
You want to see the code I did this afternoon to learn? Look, when I put that here, you will see that there's a CodeGen JavaScript file that does all the introspection. So, and actually here, I think, oh, here's my GraphQL, and it made all this lovely stuff for me. So we know it exists, but we said it on the beginning of the stream, like, let's not do that now because it just goes deeper. I just don't know enough about Next and React now to also be worrying about all those things. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And in fact, like when I write a lot of tutorials, I'm not even using TypeScript. But that's me.
Yeah, I was being a bit annoying to you today, and I actually added some TypeScript in here. So we'll see how far we go with it.
It's all good. It's an important thing long term.
Oh, of course. And the whole point for now is, though, let's get that data in. So we have the get data function. So
and you'll notice in our fetch, we do pass 2 pieces of that object, the query, but also Hygraph is expecting variables if variables are defined. So in this case, we're passing in the amount, which we know is going to be that 3 that's in the argument, and then the cursor if it exists, and if it doesn't exist, it won't be there.
Yeah, so then it's just the first whatever item it gets back. And so this is the way actually you do GraphQL. You post to something, and in the body you have a query and variables. That's kind of a nice
abstracted out in all the different things you can use, whether it's Apollo, React query, GraphQL request, whatever packages you're using. It all boils down to a fetch in the end. But
exactly. So then I just get the JSON back, and then I grab the data that comes out, which is that pages thing. So from the data that comes back, I get pages, and from there we can have the end cursor and the next page that come out of page info. So this is just a bit of very easy abstraction here, and it returns them all. So do we just do this?
Console log, yes. No, I was hoping you were going to console log. But yeah, so this is different from the old way of doing it in Next, right? In the pages router, you'd be setting up a whole bunch of stuff with like get static props or get server side props.
Remember this. This is true.
it's all boilerplate, and it was not necessary, especially now that we have React Server components. So in this case, the new way of doing it in the app router is to make a function and then call the function in your component and get whatever data you need. So
that's what this is, right?
Yep, that's exactly
Okay.
what you're doing. So yeah, pass in 3.
Well, actually, if I didn't pass anything in, it should just work, right?
Are you saying a default up in your?
Yeah, so I say 3 and cursor. Oh, it does. You know what? We'll just do this because I do want this. And then the cursor is going to be, I think, okay, look at the TypeScript of this. It expects a string, but this is where it gets weird, right? Because when I don't give it, it says null. But can a string be null? Or should I have done this?
Well, we don't want it to be a string and null. That I'll say this. I know that your code was working.
Oh, it was clearly working.
So I would say keep it to null, because I think actually a blank string will error in the query. I think it will actually assume that we sent a blank string and we'll get nothing back. I think we would get actually an array with 0 items.
So what I'll have to do probably, I don't know JSX very well, but I think this is going to be correct.
Yes, I like that you're trying to like format it at the same time.
I don't know, because when I hit save, it will just format. So that's just me,
sure.
my old school self. I think it's going to be this. Just to have a look.
Yeah.
Wasn't that something like this?
Yeah, I think it's been a while since I've spit it out like this, but yes, that should work.
Oh, or it's this.
I can never remember the order of it, to be honest.
No, same. It's not happy.
Expected 1 to 2 arguments. Just, yeah, okay. Let's just see what happens.
It's really not happy.
No, it's not assignable.
Oh, I know. It's getting posts.
Ah, yes, off the object.
I think it's this.
Yeah.
All right, let's see.
Yeah.
Clearly not.
Yeah, the other way. The other way will get it for us, I bet. Or you can just do posts and see what we get. Okay.
We definitely are not getting something.
We are getting, let's see, just console log it.
Yeah.
Without the W.
I told you were going to see me struggle, right?
Yep. And this will actually be in your terminal, not in the browser.
All right. It's super unhappy with that JSON thing.
So
but
scroll up. Yeah, so you're getting an array, and then the array has each page. Those are technically posts.
So we do have them.
Let's not worry about the JSON parse. Let's instead, because what we actually want to do is loop through it. So let's go ahead and do a curly bracket, and just post.map, and then we'll put eventually a component here, but for now let's just get something on the page. We'll take the post
to make it not complain. We go like this, I imagine.
Yeah, until we actually get our types and all that. But you'll need to wrap it in something, and you'll need to put instead of doing the brackets, do parentheses to just automatically return a component or a JSX component.
Like this.
Yep. And wrap those in the curly brackets.
No.
And then you'll still need one more curly bracket at the end. There you go. Oops,
so why would this complain?
Let's see, post.map, parentheses, arrow function. Expected comma. Where do you expect the comma? This is why one-liners are terrible, Tim.
Oh, I so agree. Let's just make it a little bit rougher.
Okay, and then parentheses and then bracket at the end.
So this should do it,
and
right?
Wrap that in parentheses. I guess you wouldn't technically have to. Key. Yeah, it is a it's an
It makes sense.
a list. It's an array that we're mapping over, and React wants keys for everything. It'll post.cursor is fine.
Okay, and this should do.
Yes.
Like, to me, it's so funny because I'm not used to JSX, right? A map should return something. It's not a const here, but of course it returns into this function as a thing. So
Yes.
to me, it's slightly odd, but it works.
There are all the cursors. Now, all the data for that lives one level deeper. So each post has a post object on it that we named in our GraphQL query. So if you wanted to like show the slug for each of them, for instance, it would be post.post.slug. And then we save it.
There we go.
So we have our first three, but in reality, we actually want to pass these into a component where we'll add some interactivity to it.
These components need to need to render like something nice looking, right?
Yep. So to start, let's move into a new file in the. You could put it in the app directory. You could put it in the root directory, components / and we'll call it list post.
A list.
Yeah, because right now we're at the list level.
Oh, we do the list first and then we do posts inside.
I mean, you can do it in whatever order you want. It's fine either way. It's just however your brain works.
Capital, right?
Yeah, capital. You don't have to make it capital, but it is the convention.
And I imagine I have to do something like this, but then maybe not async. It is going to be a list.
List. And then it's a function. It will return out the JSX.
Something JSX.
Yes. And then you'll import it on your page.tsx and you'll put it inline.
Yes, people, this is the level Bryan has to teach me React. But we get there. Oh.
Typing's hard too. I understand.
Oh, it is hard for me. 100%.
Now, one thing that we won't get into today, but one nice piece of syntactic sugar in Next would be to configure your, what do they call it? Your alias for your components. You can actually tell it what directory to expect your components to be in, and then you do @ / and it's that directory.
Isn't that by default done for components?
If you set it up to be that way, it's part of when you run the CLI. It's one of the options you can say yes to, and then it will work.
There it is.
So there's that. So we can basically move what you've got in your page.tsx into that component.
Okay, but then it just needs to get post as props.
Yes.
So we can already just
post equals curly bracket posts. All right. And then you want to destructure that.
It's like this, right?
Oh, almost.
Almost.
Yep. So what that's doing there is you've got the props coming in, but we already know we're only getting posts, so we can actually just destructure it in the argument area.
Yeah, exactly. Do I then do this?
Yep. Yeah, and you'll need to wrap it either in an element or you can do that, and that's a fragment.
This is the strangest thing ever to a Vue.js developer. But
React wants everything inside of an element, even things that you don't want wrapped in an element. And when you don't wrap it in an element, you do what's called the fragment. It used to be you'd have to import React and say React.fragment and then wrap everything in React.fragment. They've put some. To
be honest, Vue.js does this too. It just doesn't bother you with it. They do it with comments. So Vue.js has something like this in the HTML to be able to parse to. So they all do it.
Yeah.
In React, you just have to consciously do it.
Yep. And that's design decisions. It's
going to be horrible. We're just going to, that doesn't work. Okay, so now we should see the same thing, basically.
Yeah, the goal should be,
Yeah, cool. So we have
to have something, which is no more something. Hey, Tess. One of our amazing folks on the people team.
There we go. So, all right, we have something now. Yep. So I do have, because I prepped this a little, and we've done a few streams before where we looked at the microblog. Yep. I have a post component in React already, because we did that last time. I just took it from yours.
Yep.
So I'm just going to grab that for a second. And let me find it. Post.
So you don't want to watch Tim type Tailwind classes to make it look
No,
nice.
nobody is ready for that.
And no one wants to see everything looking ugly either. So it's a delicate balance here on the
So we're
Hygraph
going to
screen.
make a post.tsx.
Yep.
Right. And I'm just going to paste this in. And so it's just going to have to get, you see, we have the any here also. So we're going to grab a post, and when we do something with like the created add date, just to kind of like make it look a little decent.
Yep. So,
right?
so yeah, basically all that's happening here is we're getting the data from the prop, we're converting it into nice strings, and then we are we're getting HTML for our content from Hygraph, from our rich text editor. We are dangerously setting inner HTML on that. We do have a React renderer for our rich text, which would be the better way of doing it, but we're not going to get into that today.
Not for now.
Exactly. And then we're setting the time for each of them so that you can see it in a nice way for when that was created.
So what we could do is, rather than this, actually
start typing. VS Code will actually do this for you. So go to your return statement, or at least it should do it for you. We'll see if it works out, and delete all of that for now, and then start typing open angle bracket
open
post, and let's see if it gives it to you. There, hit enter, and
yeah.
it automatically imports it for you from where it is.
That's cool. I like that. Do we add keys here too, I guess?
Yep. This is a list. Anytime you map in React, you're going to want to add a key to it.
The thing is, in Vue.js, they don't tell you to do it. Well, there's a warning rather than an error. And then you just don't do it for a while. And then you suddenly realize, why is this so weird? And it doesn't work. And the caching is weird.
Yep.
Turns out you didn't add a key. So it's good in Next or React, at least here, like you have to add it. It's very
So we
important.
should be seeing something better now. Maybe. There it is.
Nice.
So again, this was just the prettification of it all.
Yeah, so we skipped the part of me struggling with Tailwind classes. I'm kind of happy we didn't have to struggle with that.
Exactly. And in fairness, we didn't struggle with it last week when we did it in Astro. We copied and pasted again.
Exactly. So the main thing now is it's going to start, because we have to have this button here, which is going to be in the client, because we have to bind a click and then do something.
So here's where we deviate from where we were in Astro. So in Astro, we rendered all these posts, the first 3 in HTML, and then we moved the state into the more button so that we could keep the way that Astro wants things and have it actually render as HTML and not render our HTML on the client. But more in this style, we actually want to move state up. So in Next, we're going to move the state up into our list component and have our list component manage that state and put the button in there as well.
Exactly. So do I just go for button?
You absolutely can, yeah.
Let's see how this looks. Okay, so you know what I'm going to quickly do is steal those styles from the other one. So it looks good immediately.
Just a few classes.
And so there's also this loading state we have, but let's not worry about that for now.
Yeah, exactly.
So
we got 20-ish minutes. So
exactly. So there's an on click already. Let me just remove that, because we're going to write that together now. So load more is going to look a lot better, I hope. Oh, of course, it expects an expression.
Yes,
that makes
just get rid of the whole thing. Yep.
And we have a lot more button.
Yep.
It just
does nothing.
Do anything. But here we go. I like it. Yep. So what do we make a binding now, or do we go in a different direction? Like what is the best way to go here?
So I think what we want to do is we're going to go ahead and move state into here. So let's go ahead, and this is going to, instead of being a React server component, we're going to make it a client component instead. And there are plenty of reasons to talk about the pros and cons of this, right? This will load on client load. However, we're not going to fetch content on client load at this point. We're fetching it at the server level. It gets passed as JSON into our page as it goes down.
Yeah, here.
And then we'll take that and render the first bit. It still requires the client-side JavaScript to do that, but it's not a page. It's not a server query, right? It's not a fetch request.
Well, this is a server query right now.
All that's rendering on the server.
and then all this information on the server is giving it to my list, and then the list is client, so it just gets the post and renders it, but this client doesn't query, not yet at least.
And the reason this has to be a client component is we are going to be using state, and we're going to be using React's use state functionality, which doesn't work server side. It is a client thing.
Exactly.
So what we can do is we can go ahead and start making our various state elements. So there's a few things that we're going to need, and you can go ahead and start typing them if you want. We're going to need our posts. So we will const post set post, and this is
one, right?
Yep. And this is the way that React wants it, and you can actually use VS Code. Yep. Actually, delete that real fast. There you go. Oh, quick fix. Look at that. Good job.
I've been doing it like this because I just don't know React, so it's helping me fix things. It's very good.
So we're going to use state on that. We can, grab the posts. That will automatically populate the current state.
Will this not break that this is posts and this is...
Oh, actually, it will.
Yeah.
Yes. So what I would recommend doing is one becomes post list. And it can be whichever one you think makes the most sense on that.
I'll just do it like this. Oh, not list.
List. It's going to list. We'll take a post, and then it becomes set post lists. There we
go. And now, honestly, we could just do this, and it should work, right?
It should work, and that's actually a good part to test. But now, click on your fancy little JavaScript button. JavaScript. And
it still works.
We'll refresh it. Hard refresh. You know, I'm learning something today. Look at that. You apparently don't need JavaScript. Apparently, it actually does what I want it to do there.
You know what? It might actually look at, can I do something in the server with this client component, and then just does it, and then hydrates after. Yeah. That might be what we're seeing here.
Might be.
Booba, are you still in the stream?
If you know, post in the comments. But yeah, I honestly didn't test that, and I didn't expect it because maybe I sometimes think less of React developers than I should. That's great. That's amazing. That's absolutely what I want to have happen.
Yeah, this is very nice. Yeah, so it's like a hydration thing probably. Yep. So I imagine they try to run this on the server as well, just to see if it works somehow, and if it's hydratable, so we don't touch window or unclicks or. But the thing is, there's a use state in there.
We're gonna move past the amazement.
We're gonna move past this problem.
I am just happy. I expected it to be blank, and that is actually great. So I'm very, very happy with the next team there.
All right, so we have our posts list.
Yep.
But what else do we need?
So we'll need a few other pieces. We will need to know the cursor, the next cursor that we want, right? Not which is the current end cursor, right? The cursor that we're going to start the next query from.
So next cursor.
Yep. And then each of these will be set as a function. And for those who aren't React folks or who are maybe junior in this, each of these is a variable that stores the information. So in this case, post list and next cursor. And then there's also a function that useState gives us on how to update that variable in a reactive way.
Yeah,
so
that's what
we're doing on these.
Exactly.
We'll also need a loading or a has next, which is going to be a true or false. It's going to be a Boolean to know whether we need to load the button or not, the load more button. And that's also going to be a use state in this case. We do need to be setting some default states on these, Tim. So on next cursor, set it to a that's going to be the
it's the final
posts dot next dot next cursor.
I'm not sure that's in posts.
Sure.
Because what we're sending is posts. So we don't have these.
Oh, and we need to send both. Sorry, this is what we talked about before the stream, where your brain works slightly differently than mine. You broke it out and created your own object. In my mind, I just passed everything and just took everything. Your way is cleaner.
Exactly.
But yes, we need to pass those as props as well. You could pass everything, but let's pass it cleanly as props.
Let's do it like this for now.
Yep.
Not is the way to
it, though.
This is not really.
Yeah. Everything's explicit, Tim. Everything is explicit.
You know what? if I write this while I'm learning and I look back tomorrow, I know exactly what the heck is
You know
going on.
what's happening. You know what each thing's named,
Kinda
and
like
you can.
this.
Yep.
But how does that work with these? Like, shouldn't it be like this?
Nope.
Okay.
Camel case.
Oh yeah, it's JSX, so they can choose
Yep.
whatever the hell they want.
Yep.
That's kind of cool, though.
Yep. So now in our use state, the next cursor is going to be end cursor.
Oh, look.
Yeah, this is where we run into issues, right? And again, that's why you might want to rename it as it comes in.
This is kind of cool this way. So now we have all the information as a base.
Yep.
That's cool.
And so now let's do this. Let's wrap our button in a conditional that is around has next, and we'll do it in the fancy like new JavaScript way, which would be has next end.
This is like alien subject matter for me when we're talking React and versus Vue.
You could write this out as a full conditional or as a ternary or anything like that.
And I like the shortness of this. This feels like, do you remember when you were doing WordPress with PHP back in the day with they didn't really have a template language.
Yep.
So you would figure out the shortest way you can write PHP with echoes and things like that. That's basically what we're doing here, which is cool.
Yep. And in this case, it's short. I actually really hate it. It took me a while to like put it in my brain, but it's short.
Yeah, exactly. So if there's a next page, potentially only then we need a lot more. That makes a ton of sense.
And then for now, since we only have about 8 minutes, let's go
Holy
ahead.
crap, let's go fast.
Let's get our button set up. So let's add the on click and let's make that function. So on click, and we'll call it what did you call it? Handle load more. And this is where we look at where we want to put it. We're not going to put it outside the component because we want to have access to some of the functionality inside the component, some of those setter functions that we've got. So in this case, we're going to add it in the component, which you're already working towards, and it will have the information that it needs inside of there if you spell function correctly.
If. Yes.
So yeah, inside of here, we can then do basically the same thing that we did for the homepage, right? We can do a fetch request. We can probably grab all of that. And again, you'd probably want to abstract that out into its own file and use it.
Yeah, so essentially, do we want to... Oh, no, we're not going to do this now because we have the cursor.
Yep.
And the amount we're just going to keep at 3 for now.
Yep.
So yeah, this is not the cleanest way. Or you want to abstract this function away elsewhere somehow.
Absolutely. And like the work's already done on that, right? Like you've made arguments and all that. You can use it wherever. You would put it in another file, export it, and then import it into the files you need it in.
So for now, we're just going to do this.
Yep.
And this is...
Yep. We're just basically changing these things out that we had set manually on the home page into the various stateful variables that we have. Oh, what you doing?
I'm getting back the next cursor, right? So I'm going to set it.
I thought we were in another part of the file.
Yeah, we're just going to go slightly faster now. So basically what this is doing is just setting that thing in the state here.
Yep.
And
so we also need to set the post list. And this
that might be the most important one.
This is where we do the fun thing that we also did last week, where we need to pass in the current set of posts and the new set of posts so that we continue.
What I remember from learning this thing before, that you actually get the posts here as a function.
True.
And so let me see if I have that in my previous code also. Yeah, it's like this.
Yep.
I'm just copy pasting just for the sake of fastness.
Yep. So we're saying post, we're getting the previous set, the previous state, which is something that's passed into the function that we get in set posts. And then what we're doing is we're immediately returning a destructured version of the last posts, right? So the actual posts from the array. And then we're putting the new post in at the end of that so that we keep the state moving downward.
Is that pages then?
It shouldn't be pages.
Oh, pages.posts.
Yep.
So why is this not happy?
Hold on.
Oh, yeah. I added TypeScript and then
Yep.
to not look at it. How about that? for now.
Yeah. So
We have a few minutes left.
theoretically, this should work.
Theoretically, famous
I hope
last.
so, because we got 5 minutes. Okay.
Yeah.
Errors are fine. Errors are good. Destructure property content of post.post as is undefined. So let's go into this component and let's log out what post is, because I think we're making a bad assumption. Right?
Yeah, so somehow this posts lists, this stuff is not correct.
So
you wanna, we cannot console log here, right?
Go back to the error real fast, because I think we're in a different spot than what you're thinking. We're in, okay, no, you're right. You're right. So let's log in our fetch in our handle click, right? Let us look and see what the data we're getting back from Hygraph is, because I think that's where our problem is.
Exactly. I think that's definitely where it's going wrong.
So, yep. JSON data.
Let's just have a look what this is.
Yep. And yeah, open up your console.
All the way down.
Well, but this will actually be in the browser, because this doesn't happen
until
you're
right. This is client.
Yep. So console and
console in Zoom.
Okay, that doesn't matter for now. Yeah, click the button. All right, and you can see we got the log. The log's all the way at the top.
Here it is.
Page info and posts. What did we call it? I think this is a naming issue.
100%. So pages has posts and has page info.
All right, so after set post list, console log post list. Oh no, actually, yeah, this is exactly right. Thank you, chat. We have to destructure pages.post as well. Yeah, exactly.
Oh no, that's it.
We do the destructuring on both. Yep, because they are both arrays, and so really what we had was 3 items, comma, an array of 3 items. So we ended up accidentally nesting it.
Yeah, you're totally
good catch,
right.
Max. Thanks.
That is the way.
Right, so let's see, because it's not going to error until we click. There they are.
We did it.
Yep.
Okay,
so the only
we have
thing that we don't have in this that we had in the other, we don't have necessarily time for today. So we don't have that loading state, but that loading state was just a div. Like, it wasn't a fancy loading state. And there are probably some protections that we need to add in as well. But yeah, this is what we did last week, but in Next as opposed to in Astro. And I'm actually very pleased with what I learned today, because I learned that that Next actually is putting the HTML in the browser. Like, that's great. I really didn't anticipate that happening. Good job, Vercel team and Next.
Like, yeah, so they put the HTML in, and then they just hydrate if it's a client, and otherwise they don't. I like this a lot.
Yep.
That's kind of the Vue approach, or the Next approach anyways. It makes sense.
Yep.
And so we didn't do everything, but we didn't have all the time we had last week. So thank you so much, Bryan. I learned a lot. The only thing that wants me to take a shower is that I have 2 big queries in 2 files that do exactly the same thing.
And that's why it's, and Max is bringing up, could you use get post as a server action on the client? Probably. I haven't done enough research on server actions at this point, but yes, that would be probably the ideal way of doing it. The very much Next way of doing that.
Exactly. So I still have something to learn, but once we'll sit together and figure out the best way, and then we push this on. And so once this becomes a starter, you get the clone from Hygraph, which is the microblog with all the things. Do I have this on the screen? No, it is fine. We don't need.
There's a long URL anyway.
Exactly. And then once we have that, then you can just choose. I want my next. I want my next. I want whatever. We're going to do a few of them. That's very nice.
I'll actually grab that link again. I'll post it in chat. It's too long to put up on the screen and have people type. But if you are interested in the data that we're working from, at least, it is there, and we'll be making the front ends available as well as they come in.
So with timing in mind, everyone who's here hopefully is also on our Slack community. And if not, feel free to join us and just ask away and tell me I cannot do React for shit if you want to. I don't think it's needed.
Be nice in the community. Being nice in the community is important.
Of course. We have T's and C's in the community, yes. We have guidelines and all of the things. Anyways, no, it's I'd love for you to join and ask your questions, but also show off your work, because then we'll put you in the stream if you want to and show it all off.
Yep.
And Bryan, you want to take the next?
Sure. It's always good to sign up for Hygraph. But again, I would recommend it in the chat, grabbing the link from there, which is that microblog, and playing around with the data set. But if you just want to see, we have a whole bunch of other starters in there as well with different data sets. app.hygraph.com/sign up to go there and start playing around with our GraphQL native CMS.
Exactly. And then lastly, all of this stuff, you can also just find it in the docs if you wanted to. And so this is our CTAs out of the way.
Yep.
We're at the minute time box where Bryan has to flee and run to another meeting. So we're good. Bryan, thank you so much. We will see you next week, not with me, because I will be in Amsterdam doing other things, but we'll have Bryan and Lo, I imagine.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good time. I actually don't know what we're talking about yet. I don't know if we've promoted it or not. If we haven't, I've got some ideas.
Oh yeah, this is part of living on the edge of a startup and then doing the content as it comes. And this is like the nature of DevRel. We love being reactive. So thank you everybody for watching, and we'll see you soon. Cheers.
Next time.
I clicked the button.